What's up guys, my name is John over at GoFast, and today we're going to be talking about how to install your bed mounts to your camper. So the first thing we're going to go over is what tools are required. Right here I got a 1/2 inch, got a 5/16 Allen. Impact's helpful but not needed. Everything can be done with just a wrench. And then what comes in your kit, every single bed mount kit is going to come with these. So you're going to have your upper, you're going to have your lower, you're going to have a anodized black square nut, and then you're going to have a zinc coated bolt. These 4 things come with every bed mount, and right now specifically we're going to be talking about how to install this on a Tacoma T-Track system. And if you have a Tacoma T-Track system, it's going to be coming with a Tacoma T-nut, and then you're going to have a grade 8 bolt that goes in that as well. So the first step in this whole process is going to be installing your billet upper mount. What comes with this billet is obviously you're going to have the mount itself, you're going to have a nylock nut, one of GFC's tube washers, and then there's going to be a bolt in this as well. So first thing, obviously this bolt is going to go straight through the only hole it can right there, and it kind of gets captured into place. Then you're going to have your tube washer. An important thing to note on the tube washer is there is actually a radius on this. So if you look real closely, that's how it's supposed to be. If it turns 90 degrees the wrong way, it will not be seated flush on there. And as a visual representation of where it should go, you're going to have a vertical line cut into that. So that's how you know when you mount it that this tube washer stayed in the right orientation. All right, so now that we went over what comes in the upper mount, we're actually going to attach it to the beam. So the first step is taking this, and you're going to have a slotted hole right here on a Tacoma or a Tundra. Just go dead center of that, lock it into place. You can take your tube washer and make sure that line is straight up and down on you. Throw it into that bolt. It's a little hard to do with your fingers. Be careful on this, it's a little sharp. And then you're going to take your nylock nut and just thread that in, hand tight for now. Once you got that in there hand tight, you're gonna take a 1/2 inch socket and you're gonna crank down on this. Just remembering to keep that tube washer in that vertical position. All right, and if you look right here, you notice that tube washer kind of spun on me. So what you're going to want to do is just back off that nylock real quick, put it in the right position, and then retighten it down. All right, so now it's tight. We don't have a torque spec for this, but just make it tight, and then give it a good 1/4 turn after tight. All right, and now we'll move on to actually assembling the lower. All right, now that we got our upper mounted, it's time to assemble the lower. And again, we're working on a Toyota, so either a Tundra or a Tacoma. So we're gonna be using a Toyota T-nut right now. So the first thing we're gonna wanna do is assemble the lower. We're gonna take the provided 1.25 inch bolt. Since I know where this is going, I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4 holes from the top of this mount to attach this. And then again, we're gonna wanna make sure we have that washer in there. And then we're gonna have our T-nut. Always important to add a little bit of Loctite to this. Just need a little dab on here, nothing crazy. And then our T-nut. And now we get to actually kind of test where this is going. So with the T-nut into the track, we can kind of visualize where this is gonna be sitting. So right now we're sitting about a 1/4 inch in between the upper and the lower. That's looking good right now. So I'm gonna hand tighten this in here real quick. All right, so that's looking pretty good right now. So I'm gonna kind of back this off a bit, let this kind of dangle. Now we're gonna take the provided zinc coated Allen bolt right here, the Allen head, with the anodized black nut. Again, we're gonna put a little bit of Loctite on this, just along the threads. This bolt right here, it's a custom bolt, supposed to just fit in this direction right here. It can turn this way, but we don't want it to turn that way. We want to make sure it's a nice snug fit through the top. We're going to drop this bolt through the top of the upper. You're gonna hand thread it into this. And now everything's loosely assembled. We have our spacing about where we want it. Again, the spacing's about 1/4 inch in between the upper and the lower, leaving a nice parallel gap. Once we tighten this up, that gap is gonna compress and change, which is what we want. So the next step is to tighten this bolt to the T-track. All right, so now we got the lower attached and the upper attached. They're not going anywhere. The last and final step is to actually tighten this vertical bolt. That's gonna snug everything up and give you some good clamping power. So I'm gonna use the 5/16 Allen I have right here. Gonna put it on my ratchet. You can use an impact if you want. I kind of prefer the ratchet. And you're just gonna work this up. And one more thing to note, since this nut is captured in here, you don't need to hold on to it from the bottom. All you need to do is tighten from the top. All right, so we have the nut kind of seated up, hand tight right now. Now you can kind of see we still have that gap in here, and this is where all the magic happens. So taking this and tightening this down, you're gonna notice that this gap right here is gonna disappear, which is what we want. And the torque spec on this top is 40 foot-pounds, so grab a torque wrench, get it nice and hand tight, set it to 40 pounds, and then make sure it clicks into place. And with the upper secure, the lower secure, and this vertical tightened down, you can see we have no gap right here. Everything's butted up and meted perfectly. This is tight, everything else is tight. Now, if for any reason you were tightening this and there was a gap still here, you tighten as hard as you can, there's still a gap, that's where these holes come into play. You can do a little adjustment. So if this thing isn't tight enough, you can move it up or down, just depending on what you need. The main goal is to make sure you have 1/4 inch gap before you start tightening it. And then once you tighten everything down, that gap disappears and everything's nice and flush. If you tighten everything down and it's not, then you need to adjust this hole. All right, now that we have mounted it to the Toyota T-Track system, we're now going to show you how to mount it to every other system. Right now, we're gonna be using a chase frame as the example. The chase frame comes with the billet upper already attached to the beam. And like in the previous steps we did on the Toyota system, mounting this first is what you're gonna wanna do anyways. So for this is already mounted. So now we're gonna be moving to the lower system. And just like before, the lower system comes with the 3 same things. You're gonna have your lower mount, you're going to have a plate nut. I called this a bolt earlier for some reason. It's a plate nut. And then you're going to have your bolt. And then the rest of this system, you're going to have your ledger, your channel grip, and then for some specific trucks, we have this called a chongus. This is mainly used for something like a Ram or more long bed trucks that need a little more purchase underneath. But for today's purposes, we're going to be using these two. And we're going to start by setting up the lower. The lower mount, as you can see, has a bunch of different holes in it right here. I know exactly where this needs to go. If you're running into trouble on what hole you need to use, just shoot us an email. We have all this documented. We can help you out real quick. We're working on a Gladiator bed right now, so I know that this needs to go 1, 2, 3, 4 from the bottom. So we're gonna take our channel grip right here, or our ledger block, sorry. You can kind of see the cutout of this ledger. It slots right into there, nice and clean. Then you have the channel grip, which also has these ribbed teeth on the back. Right now, and for most cases, you're gonna wanna just line those up flush with each other. There is some room to go up and down, but for our purposes and for most people, you're gonna wanna start like this, and then you can adjust from there. So taking this and your bolt, you're gonna put your bolt in on the back side, just like that, lining it up with the 4th hole from the bottom, so right there. Take your washer, take your nylock, and we're gonna tighten this down fully right now. And tightening this down, you're just gonna take your 1/2 inch socket and give this a good crank. All right, so now now we have a fully assembled lower, and this is what the bed rail or the bed channel is gonna go into. You can see we're flush on the bottom. None of our teeth are up, none of our teeth are down. We're in the right hole. So now it's time to throw this on and see where we're lined up at. All right, so moving over to the actual bed right now, we got our upper mounted, we got our lower fully assembled. Now it's time to see if we chose the right hole and we chose the right teeth. So the best way to check is to butt this up as much as it's gonna go. You're gonna wanna make sure that this is contacting up under your bed rail. So push it up as best you can. So right now, with it fully seated, we're sitting at about a 1/4 inch gap, which is exactly what we want. If this gap was anything different than a 1/4 inch, if it was bigger or smaller, that's when we can adjust this bolt hole position or this teeth position. But for right now, we're looking good. So the next step is to take your plate nut, take your zinc coated bolt. We're gonna add a little bit of Loctite to this. We're gonna drop that bolt through the vertical hole. Take our lower mount, the bolt's gonna go right in that channel. We're gonna fish it up into there. Take our plate nut, make sure it's positioned this direction, not this direction. And we're just gonna hand tighten this down to start. So now we got it loosely hanging. Now we're gonna take our ratchet again with our 5/16 and we're gonna tighten this down. All right, so now we got it just kind of hand tight on there. We can see that our gap is starting to close already, but we still have a little gap in the front, which is what we want since it's not fully tightened. As we tighten it down, the bulb seal is gonna compress. Everything's gonna look nice and right. So we're gonna start cranking down on this. And then again, you wanna give it about 40 foot-pounds. And once it's tightened down, this gap should have disappeared. The upper and the lower should butt up nice and pretty, and everything's mounted on there. You're just gonna repeat this step for the rest of the 3 sides, for the rest of the 3 of the mounts, and you should be good to go. All right, so now we're gonna talk about the minimum and maximum teeth requirements and where you can move this up or down. So starting at the flush position right here, we can actually move it down only about 1 tooth. You can see 1 tooth down, and you can move it quite a few ways up or down depending on what you need. If for some reason moving it all the way down isn't helping you out, then you're going to need to pick a different hole on your lower mount. So if you have it mounted in here and you have it all the way down and it's not where you need it, you need to then move this bolt hole up. And then the same thing, you can move the whole assembly up, but again, you're gonna wanna make sure you have at least 3 teeth contacting each other at the same time. If you go all the way up and you only have 1 tooth, you have a little side-to-side play, it's not biting very well. So make sure at minimum you have 3 teeth locked in there. If you don't, this will void your warranty and we're not responsible for anything after that. And again, if you have any questions, please call us. We're more than happy to help, and we have all this information documented. All right, now that you have all your mounts set up, probably the most important thing is to check these mounts. So from the factory, if you pick it up from us or a partner shop or you self-install it, you're gonna wanna check the whole entire mount assembly 500 miles after, and you're gonna retighten everything down. And to look at everything, you're gonna wanna check this right here. You're gonna retighten that to snug. And then you're also gonna wanna check your vertical right here as well. And you're gonna wanna make sure this is maintaining at 40 foot-pounds. And every 5,000 miles, we also recommend checking these. And every time you go off-road, you're gonna wanna check them as well. Just like any other topper on the market, you always wanna check the mounts because these are the only things holding this to your truck bed. So definitely give those a check. And if for any reason you go to tighten it, it doesn't look like it's doing anything, it's not tightening where you want it to go, give us a call, we'll help you out. Our email is support@gfcengineering.com.